Hello and welcome to New Forest Morphs. Today we're going to be covering some of the questions that were posed on our last 300 giveaway film. Can I just say a big thank you for everyone that's commented and the thumbs up. It's been one of our best thumbs up video, and we're so grateful for your support as part of our community. So Jad and I thought we would pick up maybe one or two questions today of some of the things that you've put out there. And we'll come back to it in a second, but we've just got a little thing to show you. We just walked into the reptile house this morning and it's a big thumbs up because we've got another lock. And Jared, let's just show people what's going on here. So we've got here Coco, who's our mocha. It's quite an unusual gene. We haven't featured it yet, but we will probably do a genetics on that one. But let's have a look and see what's going on. Can you see that they're creating their own atmosphere in there, aren't they, Jared? They're creating their own heat. And this is not, we haven't actually done a lot to this at all. We've just put these two together. So the mocha is Coco, but the male going in here is Titus, who's our Mojave Ultra male. And let's have a look and see what's going on over there, Jared. Can you see a lock?
Yeah.
Can you see one?
It's hard to see on the camera, but
yeah. So Titus has just shed out a couple of days ago. He didn't get fed this week. And we decided to put him in with the mocha girl, who's getting so big now that she's getting close to ovulation, we think. And so we thought we'd put him in again. They have locked up before, but we thought we'd put him in so that we can hopefully give her a final opportunity to get her eggs going. And but she's created a lot of, they've created so much atmosphere in there. You can smell the hormones, you know things are going on in there, Jared, don't you? Mm. But we thought we'd just show you that to start with. So we've got a couple of questions. We're going to try and hit at least one of them today, if not possibly two. Let's go to the table and let's have a look and see what we're going to be discussing. So the first question was from a new subscriber, a young man who goes by the name of Croy. So welcome, Croy, to our channel, and also a big welcome to all our new subscribers. We've had another 8 subscribers in less than 14 hours, which is, for us, we're really happy with that. So thank you everyone for sharing with your friends, because it's having an impact. It's actually improving and increasing the people that are following us. So please keep that going. So the question, Jared, that this young man gave us, Croy, he said, do both male and female snakes fast, which means go without food? And if so, do you stop feeding to trigger the breeding, or do they refuse the food and then you know that they are ready to breed? Love the videos, thanks guys. Okay, well, good luck in the competition, Croy. So you're automatically in the free t-shirt competition. And I forgot to mention, they were giving 5 t-shirts out in this competition. So far we've got 25 comments, which means that you've got a 1 in 5 chance of hitting that t-shirt. Obviously the competition closes on Friday the 15th, and we're hoping that some more comments will come onto the videos. So there's 5 t-shirt stickers and magnets up for grabs, and that will be part of the prize. So Jared, what are your thoughts on that question? What would you say if you were answering this young man's question? What would you say to him about the first question? Was, do both male and female snakes fast, and if so, do you stop feeding to trigger the breeding?
So to start off with, we don't stop feeding on purpose. They go off food by themselves. Mm-hmm. So we wait, we keep feeding them, keep offering them food, and then eventually we usually find that the males usually will go off food first. Mm-hmm. We have a few that continue to eat while they breed, but a lot of them have one thing on their mind, and that's breeding. So they usually go off food, and then females will actually increase the amount of food that they eat, and they'll start nailing food because they're building fat reserves to build their eggs. So they'll nail food until about time that they ovulate, and then they'll go off food from that point. So they do both fast, but usually males are first and then females are after.
Yeah. So I've been breeding for 18 months. I've had a full year cycle, and I've learnt so much. And I'd always say to any person new coming into the hobby, experience is so important. Now Jared's been doing it for 4 years, so I take a lot of my experience from his experience. And I think sharing in the community for new people coming in, tap into experienced breeders who've got knowledge and they know what's going on because they've already gone through quite a few cycles, and you can't beat real experience. And obviously do your research. There's plenty of good textbooks out there as well that you can look at and get the top support on that. But I think from my perspective, I remember I didn't realise that snakes could fast as long as 18 months. And I remember buying what I thought was a girl from Debbie in Bournemouth, part of a collection when I first got going. It was our Enchi, which we called, what's her name? I'm trying to remember her name now. We've renamed her Ezra.
It was Eve before.
It was Eve. Emily named her Eve because she was sold to us as a girl. And I was feeding Eve, and I couldn't understand why she wasn't eating. That was my biggest trouble feeder last year, and I was pulling my hair out, and I was getting really frustrated, wasn't I, Jared? And you were just reassuring me, don't worry, Dad, I've had snakes that have been fasting for months, and they go back on food. And having someone like Jared was real stabilising for me, because if I was on my own, I'd be freaking out, you know.
I went through the freak out before.
Did you?
So then I learned that it was fine.
Yeah, so now this time round I'm so at peace and so at ease, and I'm not worried about fasting, providing there are certain conditions in place. You should worry about fasting in the wrong conditions. We'll talk about it.
Brand new hatchlings.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. But I think snakes do fast, and fasting can be good for them as well. It doesn't have to be all bad news. And fasting is good for us too, because I go without a meal. I have a 24-hour fast myself once a month, part of my faith and my devotion to God. And I find that when I go without food and drink, I actually draw closer to my family and to God, because it's this little sacrifice on my part. And the money I save, I give to the poor and needy. And it's called the law of the fast. And it's the solution to world poverty. If every one of us was to fast and save the money from, say, 2 meals, and then donated that to the world population that are really hungry, it basically solves the world poverty. There should be no poverty in this world. We've got an abundance. But I'll come off my preacher hat at the moment. I'm not here to preach the gospel. I'm here to really answer your questions. But the principles are similar, is that fasting can be good for these animals. It's not all bad news. So let's just pick up the question was, so with coming back to Eve, now I bought this female, which I thought was a female, and she went off food very quickly. I thought it was because she was getting used to a new habitat and she was trying to get used to new conditions. And when you move a snake, they can go off food sometimes, and that, don't be freaked out if you're buying a snake and it takes a few weeks to get going, because they need to adjust. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong, it just means to give them time to adjust to the habitat. So what happened with Eve is, and we only found out this year, Jared actually popped her, because we couldn't understand that she went into a massive feeding mode and then she switched off. And I thought, oh, at last my girl was starting to eat, and she got up to 1600 grams. And I thought, I'm going to have another female ready to go for me this year. And then she just suddenly switched off, and I thought, what is going on? She should be feeling like a champion if she wants to breed. And I put in my banana male. Now this is a big mistake I've made. Okay, my lovely super pastel banana male Apollo, who's been locking up for his first year, locking up to all the girls. I thought, yeah, banana inchies would be nice. Let's put the banana in there, let's have a go. So I put the banana in there, and within seconds I heard this banging noise. I was thinking, what the heck is going on? The whole rub was just going ballistic. The poor little fella, Apollo, was banging his head trying to get out the rub. I thought, he's not happy in there, she's not having it. And I thought she just wasn't a prepared female. And I thought, hang on a minute, this is not right. This just doesn't feel right. So very Jared, who does all our popping for us. I've yet to pop a snake, by the way. I've relied on Jared to sex everything. But I'm going to have to learn to do that. And Jared will teach us. And maybe we'll do a video on how to pop a snake. So I said to Jared, look, I've got a feeling that Debbie's sold us something which she sold as a girl is actually a boy.
It happens. It does happen.
Yeah. So Jared then, he said, I don't like popping large animals. You said you prefer to do smaller animals, don't you? Because the larger ones are not the easiest to do.
A bit harder to get the hemipenes out, but you can do it.
So Eve I said to me, you better just check that this is definitely a girl, Jared, because this isn't right, it doesn't feel right. So Jared popped Eve, and all of a sudden we just saw one of the hemipenes come out, and I said, there we go, Jared, that is the answer to what my problem is. And the problem was, we had a boy, which we thought was a girl, and we were doing everything right to get the girl on food and try and get her going, but it was a boy that wanted to breed. Put 2 boys together, they're going to fight. I mean, don't ever put 2 boys together. So learning how to sex your animals is key to good breeding. So that's a fundamental error we made. But I've learned from it, and we make mistakes. And as long as you learn from your mistakes, then you don't have to repeat again. So hopefully that's helpful. But now, we've now called Eve Ezra. He just shed out this week, and he's up to about 1,500 grams. He hasn't eaten for literally, what, 2 months?
Yeah.
And I'm not freaked out by that because he's just following all the other boys. So instead of me pulling my hair out wondering why a girl's not eating, it's because it was sexed wrong. So thank you, Jad, for helping me through that process. So we've got an inchy boy that I'm not sure whether I'm going to put him on Morph Market, whether we need him, but we might keep him anyway and see where we go with him. Okay, so coming back to the question, do both males and female snakes fast? Yes. And if so, do they stop feeding to trigger the breeding?
Well, as in, do we stop feeding them?
Do we stop feeding to trigger? No, we don't. And Jad answered that question, didn't you, Jad? Because an animal will stop feeding when it wants to stop feeding. We shouldn't really be doing that ourselves. In other words, your best guide is your animal. Would that be true, Jad?
Yeah.
Normally. So in other words, don't press your will on an animal. Follow the animal's instincts. It's normally right. An animal will move around and feed when it's ready and comfortable. So
it's always worth offering them.
Yeah.
It's harder when you've just got 1 or 2 snakes. It's harder because you don't want to waste that rat.
Yeah.
It's easier if you've got a big collection, because if that snake doesn't eat, you can offer it to another snake. But it's worth offering every time to them.
Yeah. So I put a full written response out to Kroll's question. I'll just pick out the elements of it. Have a look at my response if you want a detailed response. So welcome to the channel. Most females and males eat ravenously before the beginning of the breeding season. So in my experience, so when we started breeding, which was late September, between July, August and September, everything was back on food and eating because the previous season had finished. The girls we cleaned up their rubs once they laid their eggs. We took them off the eggs. We haven't done a natural incubation. The reason for that is we want to get those girls back on food as soon as possible. If you leave a girl on eggs, she's going to sit on those eggs for another how long is it, Jad? 2 months?
About 60 days.
60 days, 2 months with no food, sat on those eggs. So not only will she lose all her body weight from the eggs, she'll lose all her body weight for the next 2 months. She won't eat. I never heard of a girl eating on eggs. Have you, Jad?
No.
No. So you've got the risk of losing another 300 or 400 grams, and she's already at her edge, having given those eggs. Now obviously in the wild they do it and they survive. So they can survive, it's natural. But when you're in a breeding situation as a breeder, it's a personal preference, but we go for the incubation because we want to get our girls back into condition as soon as we can.
Also, you can keep a closer eye on the eggs. When the female's on them, you can't really see them.
Yeah.
And they can go bad easily.
I think we will do a natural incubation one day, Jad, because I'd like to have a look at that and then look at the pros and cons. Another good discussion point for another video. So we get them off, and then the next step is to get them back on food as soon as possible. Now, we don't offer them the same size prey straight away. When you have a girl that hasn't eaten for 3 months while she's going through her ovulation and going through laying eggs, she has to be gently reintroduced. Remember, all her body acids and all her metabolism has just calmed down and adjusted for fasting. And if you give someone a big meal after fast, it can be damaging. So the key is to gently reintroduce them to food. So I'd introduce a smaller prey item, a nice high-end multi, and it's lovely when they take their first meal after such a long fast. It's a lovely feeling. You're so relieved that they're back on food. But it's important to clean the animal, get rid of any egg smell, any hormones. Same with the males. When they finish their breeding, you clean them up, make sure they're nice and clean, get them back on food as soon as you can as well. And then you'll have 3 or 4 months of rebuilding and reconditioning your animals for the following season. So some of them take 4, 5 or even 6 months, but you'll find they'll feed very healthily if you get your temps right. And they're put back on not only their lost body weight, but they'll add more weight for the following season. So we've already experienced it where some of our girls that gave us 4 eggs are probably going to give us 6 eggs. Now the key to getting a good clutch is to feed well. The key to avoid slugs is to get your temps right, but also making sure that you're putting your breeding rotations in at the right time, the sperm's getting into the system, and that you're feeding well, because a girl can only sustain the growth of a certain number of eggs if she's got the body reserves. So I think personally one of the reasons why they throw out slugs is because they're not eating enough. The other thing I forgot to mention is if you overfeed them, they can get stuck, eggs can get stuck in their body, and it becomes, what's the term for that?
Egg bound.
Egg bound. And there's a video, I think it was Shane at
Small Town
last year had that experience. He broke his heart, he lost one of his favourite girls, and I really appreciate Shane being so transparent with his filming there, because it was a hard thing to stomach to see one of your girls go through that. But I'd hate to go through that. But The key is not to overfeed your animals. If you overfeed your animals, then the girls could get stuck, the eggs can get stuck, and that's potentially fatal for them. So getting the balance right is really important, guys, but that's going to come with experience. So we will feed the gills back up, get them going, and they will naturally, they'll want to feed every day if they want to, some of them, but you have to hold back and say no. Once a week is normally good, because let them digest, let them take the goodness out. We did try an experiment and fed them twice a week once. They were pooing out most of their food because it was surplus to requirements. You're wasting a lot of money if you overfeed, and you've got a higher cleaning job. So there's a balance between feeding and building. And we found once a week is ideal, isn't it, Jared?
Yeah.
On the little hatchlings, we've done it twice for them because it's small prey going in. But on the big girls and boys, we'll do once a week. And some of the boys don't even need once a week, they need once every two weeks. So you have to play it by ear, get to know your snakes, what they like, and you'll find that'll be fine. So, the other thing is that, let me have a look and see if there's anything else. So I think that probably covers it. If you end up with a snake that's fasting, not because it's breeding, then you may have to go and see a vet, because there could be some other underlying issues. So fasting is bad if the snake isn't in a breeding situation, and there's probably an underlying issue, either with the way you're presenting the environment for that snake, it may not be happy.
The husbandry.
Or it could be they're carrying a disease. So I would always take professional vet advice on that. Keep an eye on them, and you'll be fine. So please, anyone out there that's worried about snakes fasting for a long time, don't get over anxious if it's breeding, because it's part of the course. I hope that answers your question. If there's any other comments or questions, please feel free to drop those in the link. Tomorrow we're going to cover rotations and intervals between pairing. The question was posed by Wayne Stant. Thank you, Wayne. We'll have a go at doing rotations tomorrow. Thank you all for your support. Please remember to thumbs up if you enjoy the video. Hit that subscription button if you haven't subscribed. Please share with friends, and we will see you hopefully tomorrow. So it's goodbye from me, and goodbye from Jared, and goodbye from New Forest Morse.